Our first speaker is from Hewlett Packard, Mr. Timothy Marsden, Director, Applications and Cloud Enablement, CMS. Timothy is going to be talking about M2M real-life use cases deployed in several industries, and I'd like you to all give him a very warm welcome. Thank you very much.
My role in HP really is to help telecoms customers to grow new revenues, to look at these great new trends that are happening in the world. Sorry, I'm going to have to stand over here, that's a little bit extreme. To look at the great new trends going on in the world with cloud, with mobile apps, and of course with machine-to-machine, and to understand how we can help our telecoms customers to take advantage of that, elevate themselves from just being network providers, and basically take a share of that huge amount of revenue that's going on today in the world. So I think it's clear that the world's changed. It's clear that we've got, I think the 7th billionth person was born in 2011, and I was thinking to myself, I wonder if that's in place like Delhi or in China, or maybe back home somewhere like Dagenham, maybe, I'm not sure. But the 7 billionth person's been born, and there's apparently 15 billion connected devices in the world today. So things are being connected, RFID to satellites, there's sensors everywhere. And this is the biggest change that's happened in our industry to date. What's interesting, though, is that this is really becoming pervasive. So I think that every single industry today has some form of machine-to-machine application in it. And this is amazing, given the fact that there's no standards, everything's stovepiped, solutions tend to be developed today for a particular use case, for a particular industry. There's no linkage between those applications typically, although things hopefully are starting to evolve. So the question is, if we've still got 15 billion connected devices and the market's still taking off, and utilities and telecom companies are still closing $100 million contracts in this space, what's going to happen when we do get our act together? And we do improve the standards and we put the ecosystems in place to help us to accelerate. So HP is involved with almost every industry in the world, and we've actually rolled out many of the applications and machine-to-machine applications today in logistics and in manufacturing, for example, and in leisure. And so, we do have a lot of depth and a lot of expertise in that space. So understanding the specific standards in those markets and understanding the dynamics and, of course, the business processes, which is the most important. I think, unfortunately, I couldn't join yesterday, but I believe that there was a consensus that in order to really show value and deliver value to a vertical, you have to understand their business and you have to understand the processes in that business. Otherwise, you're not in a position to help them to develop new machine-to-machine applications. So you do need to partner with somebody who does have that depth. So I'd like to just share with you a few examples around the world of where HP is involved with machine-to-machine. The first one, which is extremely exciting, is from HP Labs. So HP Labs has a fantastic pedigree in the world of coming up and developing new pioneering things in devices and hardware and virtualization in printers and in all sorts of fields in the world. And this is one of those examples. This actually won the HP CEO Award for Innovation very recently. And this demonstrates HP Labs, and HP has machine-to-machine as one of our key themes. And so the vision that HP Labs is working towards is a world where we have millions, billions, and trillions of sensors. So almost everything has a sensor on it. And if you have that in place, then all of a sudden you change the way that we live. Let me move out of this squeaky bit. But there's many challenges in doing that, because I think today the technology is not there. So HP has taken all of its different research teams and tried to understand, how can we build this? How can we build a world where you have trillions and millions of sensors on everything? And the first key area that they've looked at is in MEMS technology. So a MEMS, I think it's a mechanical, electronic, I can't remember what it's called, but it's an accelerometer. What this is really a sensor which has an accelerometer inside it, which is similar to what you have in a mobile phone or a Wii device, but it's 1,000 times more sensitive than that. So just to try and get my mind around, what does that mean, 1,000 times more sensitive? And what it means is, it means that it can pick up movements which are to the tune of 1/10000000th of a hair width. And these things are the size of a thumbnail. And because of HP's technology and ability to mass produce in printing and in computers, these things can be produced on a mass scale, they can be robust, and they can be done very, very cheaply. So now you can imagine a situation where a bridge suddenly has 10,000 of these little tiny sensors all over its key stress points. And because it can measure such tiny, minute little movements, you can suddenly get readouts on what is the stress on each of the key areas of the bridge, is there any danger, etc. And you can apply that to huge areas in the world. So you can think of other applications on cars, for example, where you can put these sensors all over cars, and they're very cheap, but they measure everything for insurance and for safety and public safety. But what does this mean? I think they did an analysis which said a network with 1 million of these sensors in it, which is not that unrealistic if you think 10,000 is what you need for a bridge, would generate 60 gig of data every second, and that's only 1 million. So if you start extrapolating that out to bridges all over the world and to cars all over the world, suddenly you realize, the networks today won't be able to handle that kind of traffic. And the databases also won't be able to handle that kind of information, the big data. So HP in our labs has got analytics, and it's got sensors, and it's got networking technology, and they're trying to solve this to say, this is most likely where the world's going to be. With the technology that we have today, it makes a lot of sense. You can imagine the safety and the security and the advantage it gives. So how do we deliver this? And the first real-life commercial application of this is with Shell Oil. So they've taken the sensors, and the target is to have 1 million of these sensors out there deployed, and they put the sensors on land. And because these sensors are so accurate and have such high sensitivity, you can get a whole new level of seismic sensoring, which means that you can actually get visibility into the ground, and you can detect oil reserves, you can detect, with a rate of extraction, you can detect where new reserves will be. Because I think the view in the world is that only 30% of the world's land oil has been tapped to date, so we need really accurate and cost-effective technologies to tap the rest of it. So a fantastic example of a real-life application. Connected cars is another key area that we're working on. So we're working in conjunction with Telecom Italia on this. And what we're doing here is we're creating an ecosystem of application providers in an infomobility initiative. And what we're doing is we're partnering with Fiat, and Fiat also is partnering with various car device manufacturers, and we're building this ecosystem. So Telecom Italia is providing the SIM cards, the network, and also the APIs to their billing, to their SMS, and their location. And also what they're doing is they're being the front end. So they're delivering a developer ecosystem, developer environment out there to try and attract developers and try and build an ecosystem for the connected car. And HP is providing the technology behind that. What we're doing is we're providing the API exposure technology within the service delivery platform. We're providing the developer ecosystem and the tools that you need to orchestrate different APIs from different areas into an application. And we're helping to pull this together. We've also developed the first application as well, just to get things going. So what we did is we worked in conjunction with a local parking authority to create a parking application where you can automatically sense where there's a free space, it directs you to the free space. When you get there, it automatically pays for your parking when you're there. And this has been very successful. So far we've had a lot of different ISVs joining this ecosystem to do with logistics, to do with navigation, and to do with in-car entertainment. And Telecom Italia now has launched the TI Next partner portal and is building and growing the ecosystem as we speak. So another key area of interest, another key area where HP is involved directly with operators and other partners. Health. So we're currently involved with a trial in Singapore where we're working with a local health authority, and we're also working with an ISV and with Singtel. And Singtel's providing the cloud ecosystem. The local ISV is providing the health monitoring device, which is a little watch that you put on your wrist, and it measures your heartbeat and your blood pressure, and it sends that data back into a central point. And this is all around cardiovascular disease. In Singapore today, over 30% of deaths are caused by cardiovascular disease. And so this, you can see how this can save lives. If you can suddenly have a model where these patients are always wearing these devices, data is constantly being sent back to a central place. There's a portal which presents this to the medical, to the doctors and to the nurses and to themselves, and they can very quickly track and create alerts when there's a risk or when something is not looking right. And HP is putting this all together. So we're putting together the ecosystem, we're creating the data collection, the applications, the portals that pull us together. And because we're working with these key partners, with the medical health authority and with the device manufacturer, we're able to now look at different ways that we can use that platform to create new applications to save lives, but also hopefully to make money for the different partners that are involved as well. So another very exciting area. And smart metering is another area that we've been involved with for some time. I think I'm on track. Smart metering and the smart grid has fantastic similarities and parallels to the telecoms industry. So HP's been helping telecoms providers for over 35 years to build networks, to secure networks, to manage networks, to deliver new services. And the capabilities are very, very similar and very portable onto the smart grid world. So we've built HP's Utility Center. And this helps utility companies to effectively provision, deliver, manage, and run these smart metering and smart grid networks. So we have technology in the service commissioning side to help you to deploy the devices, to push the applications to devices, to patch them, to make sure they're up to date, and to activate those services. We also have technologies which help you to manage those devices and the networks once they're out there and up and running. And we also have capabilities to help you collect that data. Huge amounts of data. I think my colleague was telling me that we do data collection for a major operator in Japan, SoftBank. And I think it's 10 billion records a day that our platform helps to collect and to manage. So you can see that's clearly machine-to-machine, big data grade. And within this area, with smart metering, it's the same. So we have technology to collect the data and then to mediate the data and push the data to other systems to absorb it and to ingest it and to do something with the data. So, as I said, it's amazing how far this industry has come, given the fact that there's no standards and it's almost a free-for-all at the moment. It's quite fragmented, but still, it just shows you what demand can do to force things through and get these 15 billion devices happening. But if we really want to accelerate this market and all benefit to the maximum and benefit the world, we need to build an ecosystem. And I believe, unfortunately, I couldn't attend yesterday, but my colleagues tell me that this is a common theme which has been coming out. The fact that it's all about partnerships, it's all about ecosystems, and it's all about creating a standard environment where we can accelerate the adoption and development of these applications. So, starting at the bottom, first of all, standards. We need some core standards. I think it's clear that there's no standards across industries or across applications today. And HP is at the forefront of this. So we're on the Machine-to-Machine Standards Board of ATIS. We're working with various standards bodies to try and create these consortiums like 3GPP. And we actually hosted the ETSI's latest Machine-to-Machine Consortium in Grenoble late last year. So we see the importance of standards, and we see the importance of HP being at the center of the standards drive to try and help us accelerate. The next key area is commonalities. So it's interesting because you look at all these different industries, and although all the applications are developed in a completely stovepipe way, there is a huge amount of commonality that you could leverage and you could build. Commonality in terms of the APIs that get exposed and get used from the data and the enablers, and also the applications. And I'll come on to that in a minute. So I think I'll talk a bit more about how we can leverage these commonalities. But once you have this in place, suddenly you can layer on top the focus and the value for the particular industry. Because the value in the industry doesn't really care about what the standards are. The industry doesn't really care about commonalities and how we can get a unified network interface and how we can manage SIMs properly and how we can do all these things. What they really care about is the application you're going to give them, and how that application is going to improve the business process, improve their relationship with their customer, or make them save money or grow money. And so with this common platform in place, suddenly we can now focus on the verticals and where the value is. And we can build an ecosystem, we can get specific verticals going, and we can start accelerating this whole market. So looking a bit more deeply into this platform, I think if you work from left to right, HP, we've taken our knowledge from all the industries and from the telco space and utility space and tried to put together a blueprint for what we believe this common platform should be. And on the left, of course, you have the devices, hundreds of different kinds of devices, thousands of different kinds of devices, with SIM cards in or with RFIDs or some kind of network connection. Of course, you have the radio network as well, and that's clearly within the telco's domain. But you need to have a common way of managing those devices and managing the connections of those devices, whether it's SIM management, optimizing your SIM ranges, making sure that it's very easy to switch on and activate a chunk of SIMs once you've actually put these devices out there in the field. And similarly, once you've taken those devices out and replaced them, it should be very easy to go in and switch them off without having to pay for them. And once you have that in place, then of course you have to mediate, and you have to make sure that you can facilitate the data from the devices to the back-end applications and databases. So you need a machine-to-machine gateway which translates all of these multiple standards and formats into one which all these applications can read. And then of course you need to be able to access the application. And then you need to be able to bill the end customer. And the telco provider is in a fantastic position here, because as I'm going through these, I'm sure you can see how many of these commonalities are directly within the telco scope. And the telco is already probably delivering in one way or another. And billing is one of those key areas. Of course, telcos have billing relationships already with most of these companies that we're trying to target. And big data is right at the center. And if you go back to the example we gave on the sense, if you're generating 60 gig a second of data, and that's only with 1 million nodes, once you start moving into billions of nodes and trillions of nodes, which is going to happen once the technology hits, you need to have a whole new way of constructing databases. Our databases today are constructed on web technology and technology that we know. They're not constructed for big data, for machine-to-machine scale data. So you need to have technology which is scaled for the big data model, but also in analytics. So again, you need to have a way of analyzing unstructured data coming from all sorts of devices and all sorts of locations, taking all sorts of measurements. You need to be able to correlate these with other things going on in the world on the web, such as the weather or the traffic or holidays or business trends, for example, to really take advantage and really come up with these new kinds of applications that are going to generate value. And then, of course, once you have those commonalities in place, you need to have a way of stimulating the development of these applications. So you need to have a service orchestration area that can give access to the APIs and data from all these different areas in the common platform. And then you need to expose it out into an environment or a developer platform. Developers can come in, can access standard APIs from both the machine-to-machine devices, but also from the telco, and build these applications. And once you have this in place, you need then to have a place where you can centrally store and manage and sell these applications to customers. So this is the ecosystem that we see, and this is already happening. So we're working with a number of customers at the moment on this blueprint. And it's an area that, particularly for telecoms providers, can generate huge amounts of revenue going forward. So how do we think telcos should focus their business to take advantage of this fully? So the first key area is move themselves up the value chain. And I'm very aware that today, speaking to a lot of telecom operators, there's a lot of success happening anyway in machine-to-machine. In the car industry, for example, where telecoms customers are generating hundreds of millions of dollars and big deals just doing the devices, just doing the SIMs. And it's great. But you're leaving a lot of money on the table, because you can multiply that by a factor of n in terms of the value of the actual deal. So if someone's willing to pay a telco $100 million to do the SIMs, how much do you think they're getting for the end-to-end application? 10 times that? So how can a telco provider move themselves up the value chain from just providing SIM cards and network to providing this common platform and the common area and the application, the end-to-end application? So deploying this M2M architecture, either on premise or in a cloud, is key to moving up the value chain. and really leveraging all of your assets. And big data is another key area. If you think about the commonalities, and if a telco builds this platform and a telco builds it within a cloud environment, suddenly you can start offering other things as well. So you can say to an ISV, so when you put together your end-to-end value chain, what are you doing? You're having to do devices and SIMs, yes. You're having to collect the data yourself. You're having to build your own database. You're having to build your own analytics engine. You're having to host your application yourself somewhere and pay for it. Why do all of those things? If a telco provider can provide all those things, the data collection, the database, the analytics, the hosting for the application, then the ISV can focus on what your value is building the application. So huge opportunities here. And so it's all about partnerships, I think we discovered yesterday, and it's about partnering with an IT company that can help you to do this. First of all, one that has the vision and has this blueprint and has the experience to build this for you, not just bits of it, but the end-to-end ecosystem. But also a partner that has deep insight and deep connections into all of these verticals. The stat on HP that I like is that HP provides IT technology to over 50% of the world's major companies. So that would imply that we're already deeply in every vertical. So in helping you to understand that vertical dynamics and process, but also in potential joint go-to-market opportunities, it's clear that HP is a key partner for this space. So how can we help specifically? First of all, cloud strategy. Cloud is one of HP's top priorities, as said by our CEO. And we can help to build this machine-to-machine platform in the cloud, in your cloud, in HP's cloud, in a hybrid cloud, however you like. Because of the scale of HP, we can create any kind of operating model and any kind of financial model that suits your business model. So if you want to have an OpEx focused model or a pay-per-use focused model, again, these are all options that we can talk about. Verticals, I think we've covered. You need to have the depth in the verticals. You need to have a partner that gives you access to the verticals, and you need to have a way of going jointly with somebody who has the connections with the verticals to succeed. Big data. We talked about, again, I can't emphasize enough that those stats that come from Sense. So, traditional databases just won't be able to handle this kind of scale. And you need a new way of scaling databases at the right price point to collect all this machine-to-machine scale data. And HP has seen that, and big data is absolutely on the agenda of HP. So big data and analytics and cloud, two of the core strategies of the CEO. And we've just made some huge acquisitions. I'm sure people are aware of the I think $10 billion acquisition of Autonomy and also Vertica. So Vertica is database technology with machine-to-machine scale, but not machine-to-machine scale price points. So it helps you to collect data in a database that's efficient and is structured for this new Internet of Things. And Autonomy gives you the way to analyze the unstructured data and to correlate it with all sorts of other kinds of unstructured data. And you can imagine if HP is willing to pay $10 billion for this company, what the technology is like and what the capabilities are. And then finally, with the machine-to-machine platform, so again, you need to have a partner that understands this ecosystem, has a blueprint in place, and can help you to build this end-to-end solution and help you take advantage of this market, but also understands your environment as a telecom operator, understands how to integrate this to your OSS, understands how to access your APIs, and understand the dynamics of your business, and the dynamics, most importantly, of getting sign-off from your business for the business case to help you to take this forward and to succeed. So with that, I think I'm probably a little bit over time. I'd like to thank you very much for your time. I'm here for questions. I'm not sure if we have time for questions.
Of course we do. Thank you very much, Tim. A big round of applause for Tim, please. Thank you. Anyone, any questions for Tim, please? Kindly raise your hands. Well, there's one over there, a gentleman on your extreme right. So please could you give us your name and, the lady, sorry, your name and company, please.
You might need to do the same thing.
Just one second, I think your mic is not on. Just bear with us for 1 minute.
I'm glad I'm not the only one not to switch on.
I think
there's a button on the mic, if you could press that, please.
Reserve mic.
Well, hopefully one of them should work.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay. My name's Karen Jude from Roke Manor. Your strategy seems to focus a lot on the network side. Do you have any strategy on M2M devices as well?
I'm sorry that you interpreted that. I think from the blueprint it wasn't supposed to, and it certainly is not only focused on the network side. You know, if you look at the blueprint, the network side is on the far left, and there are a lot of components between there and the applications on the far right. So to do with the data collection, to do with the analytics, to do with the billing, to do with the app developer ecosystem, to do with the delivering of the apps to the end customer. So hopefully, you know, it's clear that we're not only focused on the network. As far as devices go, yes, HP does have a focus on devices. HP Labs is very focused with this within the Sense project at also looking at not only these little sensors and how they can make these sensors cheap and robust and sensitive and handle things. I'm glad you raised this because I forgot to mention this actually, and it's a great interesting fact is that these sensors don't only do movement for seismic activity, but the view is that they're so sensitive, they can sense traffic on a motorway, they can sense other sorts of motions and stresses, but the view is to move it towards being able to taste and smell things as well. So you can imagine, if you're having little sensors that can not only sense movement and direction and stress, but also can look at taste and smell, to come back to your question, that opens up a huge raft of devices that they can be applicable to. So yeah, HP Labs is working on that, and they're working with partners on multiple device types.
Thank you very much, Tim. I think that's all we have time for a question. Just a final one, sir.
Yes, hi, thanks for the presentation. Ian Ginn from Computaris. I find it sort of mind-boggling, the idea of a bridge having 10,000 sensors.
Yeah.
I can't quite see the business application. There are lots of easier ways taking a picture and seeing whether it's standing or not. And maybe that's a bit flippant to say it that way, but certainly the other approach, just say, take 10,000 sensors and dump it in a database, doesn't quite seem to me the right approach either. So if I've got 10,000 sensors, wouldn't I be aggregating, only be collecting and filtering out the information which I don't need, and actually only moving down the chain useful information, rather than just assuming that databases and the cloud, which costs nothing by the way, is going to solve all the problems?
Okay, interesting views. Well, the first view is, I hope that people don't look at technology that takes a photograph of a bridge and only does something when it falls down. I certainly wouldn't be driving over that bridge. And these 10,000 sensors, if they're costing nothing, and you can have that sort of level of accuracy, why not put 10,000 on the Golden Gate Bridge? And as soon as there's one point of stress or weakness, you just go straight to it and fix it. I can't believe that you wouldn't see that was valuable. Second thing is, as far as the data goes, it's absolutely not as simple as that. I mean, databases today would cost an absolute fortune and would never reach the right price points to analyze all the data you have to and collect all the data you have to. And the third point is, how do you know which is the valuable data? People haven't thought of all the applications for that data today. So if you leave some of that data on the table, you can't use it in the future. Why would you not do that? So I think, you're obviously thinking of databases and how much they cost and the fact that maybe you shouldn't get all this data because it's going to cost too much. But if you get a machine-to-machine scale database with the right price points, why not collect all the data? And why not use it in the future for new applications?